So this is our last full day, and we have half a day tomorrow. So we've been approaching a storm, and are any storms coming up? Yes? Because this type of focus and silence and going deep provokes. And some storms, the meteorological office will let us know storm is coming, but some not. They just appear out of nowhere, and you're caught. So we are looking at a combination of education, understanding, and other capabilities which allow us to handle sudden and unexpected storms, which are like an ambush. And I'm thinking about any type of art or martial arts or special skill that you learn. You tend to be taught a lot of different exercises, and the sorts of things that we learn here are like that. Many exercises. But when you're actually in the situation, the fact that you had done all these exercises orients the soul to have an instant response which is almost precognitive. Because when you have a sudden storm, you don't have time to think, okay, how will I handle this? Which particular kind of setting shall I arrange for myself? Because your response has to be instant. And the instant response is there when there has been a lot of these preparatory exercises. And so this disciplines and sitting in silence and coming in particular times for meditation, the traffic controls, all of these things add up to an automatic response to sudden and unexpected critical situation or storm. And so the practices that you've been doing here, maybe you have anyway been doing them, but definitely after this, it's a good idea to keep going because you are honing your instant, natural, precognitive responses. Because a storm can come today, or it can come next week, or next year, or whenever. It doesn't really tell you in advance, I'm coming. It's like death. Some people who are very good yogis, they know when they will die. And so they're ready. And they do. I saw one time one guy who said, okay, I know I will die. So he sat down and he died. Did it very well. And in different spiritual traditions, this is always there, that the people who do their practice, whatever it may be, in many ways it's a preparation for the last thing they do, the last breath they take. And when you do this kind of practice, you become more aware about things that you can't be aware of normally. So you become precognitive, you know in advance. And another thing that is there with these type of practices and disciplines is that you're invoking these, I would call them transformative moments, because all of us are going along in a certain way, thinking that that's the way to go. And if it isn't the right way to go for any reason, a storm will come to really stop you in your tracks and say, hey, you're a robot. Wake up. Don't be a robot. You're not really a robot. Be who you are. And all this while you've been thinking, yeah, I already am who I am, but you're not. It's very often an external thing for which you can easily say, okay, it's this or that, this drama happened to me, because your perception shows it like that. But your inner wisdom, your inner knowledge shows it a little differently. It says, okay, it may look like that, but what it really is it's a message to the self, about the self, that you cannot carry on going like this anymore. You have to go differently, and you have to be awake. Sometimes we call them wake-up calls, right? If we are in ordinary consciousness, and we don't notice it's a wake-up call because our attention is going to what's visible and tangible, but not to what it's indicating about something invisible and intangible that's happening in the self or to the self, or that requires wake-up. And therefore, the preparation that we are making is to invoke those things by this stillness, the silence. I told you in the beginning about the rotation, yeah? I told you also that if you want to make a good hole in the wall, you need a drill, which goes round and round at high speed and takes you below the surface. So this also does that. And when you are knocking on the door of the subconscious, you are opening a Pandora box. And normally people's assumption about a Pandora box is it brings out all the bugs and causes disease and makes everything bad happen. But we can look at it in a different way, that it opens up ancient wounds which are not attended to, and sooner or later it becomes the right time and circumstances are right and everything is right to have that box open and say, okay, now is the time to attend to this. All of us are in a historic time where things are being called to account. And we see that on the news media, so it happens to famous people, but it also happens to us individually who are not famous people who are made stories about on the news media. It's private. So in our inner world, we are being called to account to ourselves. This calling to account is also connected with unresolved karma, and there's two types of negative karma. Usually, people think that negative karma is about some negative thing that you do to someone or something. But there's another kind of negative karma, which is that someone does to you. And people don't really know that when someone does something bad to you, the effect is as bad as if you did the same thing to someone else. And people don't know this, but it is so, strangely enough. When some negative thing is done, it creates a resonance. Creates a resonance on the part of the perpetrator of it, and the same resonance on the part of the receiver of it. And the thing that causes damage is the resonance. And so one thing that we need to learn about is, on one hand, we have received a lot of these type of resonances. And I use the word resonance because in resonance you have some vibration that's very harmonious and corresponds to you, and some that's very cacophonous or disharmonious, and that is very bad for you. You know, in the ocean, the fishes, they generally are very sensitive to vibrations. And they find their way around by sound. And when the ships do something different, it disturbs. And there's vibrations of electricity. Like, I don't know if you know, but these big pylons that you can see out of the window, they're carrying 40,000 volts. So if you are closer than 500 meters, you will be affected. You have to be aware that you might be not much affected by these things, but some people are very sensitive. So, you know, bees don't really like this sort of 4G, 5G, whatever the things are that are floating around in the air. And it has lots of effect that you can't feel consciously, but which affects you subconsciously. And so your well-being is affected by resonance, positive, negative resonance. I was talking about going into yourself, the point, the soul. There's a resonance of you. And you're connecting to the Supreme Being, and there's another resonance. And when you connect with that resonance, it sorts out your resonance. So it's like a piano tuner. And so you're getting tuned up, which gives you resilience. When something negative happens to you, could be a behavior or some physical hit or some words, they all carry a resonance, and you have the option to take it in or not take it in. But generally speaking, people take it in. And as more you are young, more you will take it in. As time goes by, you learn to keep out certain things. Once this has gone in, it starts to do damage and makes you more susceptible when a sudden and unexpected storm comes. So an important thing that we are doing here on a vibrational level is to amplify the resonance of our essential self, the pure self, such that it allows you to not take in negative resonance that may be coming from circumstances or people or environments or whatever. Because if it does come in, it does the same damage as if you did some damage to somewhere else or someone else. And this is new information for most people, because you don't really think that being on the receiving end of something negative is your responsibility, because you say, well, I couldn't do anything about it, which is true. But let's talk a little bit about how you take it in. And one way in which you take it in is you think about it. That was not very nice. They shouldn't have done that. It hurt me. It upset me. Maybe I deserved it, blah, 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 blah. The self-talk goes on, and the more you do that, the more it amplifies the negative resonance. And so a very important practice is that if something bad happens, which constantly happens, a good thing to think about it, which finishes your thoughts about it, is it's not good, it's not bad, it just is. Have a nice day, see you later, and let's go. Because finish it. Otherwise, it interferes with and weakens your natural harmonious resonance that belongs to your essential self. But obviously, over the course of many lifetimes, the soul has got weakened by much of these things happening over a long, long time. And so this is a time when we are called to account in the sense of, here's an opportunity to go in deep and get this resonance going, which corresponds to you are a pure, peaceful, powerful, loveful, blissful being of light, and you're connected to the being who is the source of oceanic amounts of that. In fact, it's quite interesting to note that when you give yourself time to time to tune in through the day, you keep resetting your harmony, your inner harmony, because constantly it's getting interfered with by what's going on, and constantly you reset it, so it never really goes away too far. We know very well from our education, culture, and so on, that we should not cause damage to other people. But we do not have that at all, the same degree of deep cultural internalized idea that I do not allow anyone to have the opportunity to damage me. Because you have to be nice to everybody, be polite to people, not take it personally when they insult you, but you do anyway, and all this type of thing. Because our education and culture focuses much more on us not doing any damage. And we want to rebalance that by giving the same amount of attention to not allowing anyone to have the opportunity or enjoy the opportunity to do damage to me. So that means we must not think of the word selfish to mean self-esteem, because people get those two mixed up. Self-esteem means that you put yourself priority number one in your life, and that you do what you need to do for yourself. The culture and morality that we hear about is that you don't need to do that, that'll make you selfish, or that is selfishness. This is actually not true, and it's also very disempowering. And so it's quite useful to give up that particular addiction. It's an addiction in the sense that addiction happens when you have too much of something. You become allergic to it, but you keep putting it in, even though you're allergic to it. It harms you. This is not a substance, but this is a part of the culture. It's all to do with Puritanism or Protestant Christianity and all of this. It's very, very religious, and it's not at all spiritual. And so we must distinguish between those two. To not take in negativity that is sent in your direction is a skill. And it's very good to learn to deflect it, to create a boundary around yourself. And there is one idea that is part of the teachings of Raj Yoga that we study here, and that is that you create a bubble around yourself. You know, like in COVID, you had to have a 1.5 meters or 2 meters between you and the next person so that you don't pick up COVID. But it also works for not picking up other stuff. And so if you can create something like a bubble of light around you, which is like a force field of energy that only allows in something that resonates with your essence, and something that doesn't, you keep it out because it's toxic. It's just a very helpful way of staying in your power and staying in your self-respect, because when you allow these things to come in, it introduces self-doubt, and it introduces the thought that maybe I'm not okay. I think the extreme example of this is something that happens to young people, particularly young women, using social media. They compare themselves unfavorably to all sorts of things that come in, and it leads to suicide. And that's an extreme form of it, but it's the same thing. It's like giving away your power, allowing something negative to come in the name of it being positive. You have this thing called body shaming, and you have every right to have the body that you have, and it's nobody else's business. You're too thin, too fat, too short, too tall, too red, too black, too white, too yellow, too purple, too whatever. Nobody gets the idea to say, have a nice day, go to hell, leave me alone. To assert that this is me and take it or leave it, and if you don't like it, that's your problem, how I look. But people are so unsure of their right to be, unsure of many things. How does this arise? I think most of it is because as children, there is not enough positive spiritual energy taken in by the carers and family, and this is circumstantial because life is difficult for most people, and almost all families are dysfunctional. It's too big of a problem to do anything about from the outside, but from the inside, at any point in one's life, one can establish these things and restore the very harmonious vibration within. And also detect. There are many things that come to you that pretend to be good for you, but it's not good for you, because it takes you away from yourself. Then you are vulnerable to anything being stuck into you, which weakens you. Then when some big storm comes along, you're not able to manage it, because all of your natural defenses have been interfered with. And so the expression that we use here in our teachings is, do not take sorrow. And so the word sorrow is an emotive word, but I would add to that, do not give anyone the opportunity to do anything that damages you. A lot of it is to do with having healthy boundaries where you open and close according to what you want to bring in and what you don't want to bring in, stay out, you see. And for that you have to be very sensitive to what is the vibration that is you. The silence practice helps to really feel, this is my vibration. This piano that we have here, it has 89 keys, all the way from low to high. Every note has a vibration. Now we have 8 billion souls, everyone like piano keys, they have their own vibration. Any piano note can be out of tune, or if you have a guitar or violin or something, you always have to tune it before you play, because it goes out of tune naturally. In the same way, the soul has its vibration, that's the right harmonic, and it goes out of tune easily. So every time you meditate, you're just tweaking it to come into tune. And when you're in tune with yourself, then you can be also in tune with the one above, and then take maximum energy and light and amplify your essential qualities of purity, peace, power, love, bliss, which is what you are made up of. Because your body is made up of air, earth, fire, water, and ether, which also have their own vibrations. But your soul is made up of purity, peace, power, love, bliss. These are qualities. They are vibrations. When the soul is in its natural harmony with its own note, and you can feel when you're in tune with yourself, right? And when you're out of sorts or out of tune, then you have to tune up. It's up to you. And when you keep tuned, and it's very positive, then there's an effect on your air, earth, water, fire, and ether of your body. And so the soul is the dominant one. When something negative occurs to you, it is maybe occurring that can be visible or tangible on the body, but it actually happens to the soul. So one expression that you can use when some big thing is happening, you can say to yourself, it's happening, but it's not happening to me. It's just happening. And you're keeping it outside. If you think it's happening to you, you're immediately letting it in and letting it weaken you inside. But if you have this right away reaction, okay, it's happening, it's not good, it's not bad, it's happening, but it's not happening to me. I am okay, regardless of what anybody thinks or says or does. This is protecting the self. And also you learn to be fast. We have another expression that we use in the Raj Yoga practice, which is high-speed acts for the sake of the self. Most people call it spiritual effort. You'd be used to that expression. But what it really is high-speed acts for the sake of the self, which means that you can respond almost precognitively to stimulation and defend yourself before it's even happened. High speed. When you perceive something by sense perception, you need some percentage of a second to do that. But when you perceive things precognitively or from the soul using the mind and not using sense organs, it's much faster. So that you can respond much quicker, so that it doesn't get anywhere near penetrating your vibrational defense system, and it stays on the outside. And they use all this stuff in the military, but you can use it also for you. But they use more physical things, because they can detect a missile is coming, right? So you can also detect a missile is coming from somebody's mind. They're planning to say some nasty thing to you. You'll know before they even think about it. Thank you very much. Not allowed. With your practice of silence, you are causing this sensitivity to develop. Another word for this is yoga power. And so you just know. And it keeps you safe from not being at the wrong place at the wrong time. You will just know, oh, I don't feel like going there. Good idea. Very often people don't have much faith in these type of thoughts that arise, but they are part of your protection system, because when you come into this natural practice of connection, of yoga, of silence, connection with the Supreme Being, who knows all things at all times, past, present, and future, can give you a little ding, hey. If you're connected, you'll pick it up. If you're not connected, you won't pick it up. This is called love. It's quite interesting to know that you are loved by that Supreme Power. But in order to enjoy it and take benefit from it, you need to be connected so you can pick up the signals that keep you safe and let you know even if relationships are good for you or toxic for you. You get plenty of wolf dressed up as sheep. It's not always easy to detect. But when you are in this practice, you become more and more sensitive. And also you trust yourself more and more, that it's not like you get an idea and say, no, that's a silly idea. You get an idea and say, okay, pay attention. Because you're reducing your doubt in yourself. Doubt comes from external messages which reflect you as you are not. How many people do you know who can see you? One or two if you're lucky. Most of the time, people project on each other, and they project something on you that they think, well, that's how you probably are, without stopping to think whether you actually are or not. Because this sight has to do with a preconception. Many people operate like this. And there's preconception and prejudice and stuff like this, which is all false. When you are operating in this inner level, you become more true. You are more easily able to look at someone and see right through their body to the soul. And because the body is just a coat. And you can't really tell too much about a person by dealing with their coat. You want to talk to the who is here. Hello. So many masks we have, which are for our protection, no doubt, but also you have all these ego masks interacting with each other, and so the actual contact between people is rare, because the eye doesn't go further than the skin, and then people are just leather bags with warm mud inside. That's not a person. It's that spark, that vibration, that character, complex, interesting character, who is most interesting, that you want to connect with. For that we have to adjust our ability to perceive the intangible via the tangible, but not stop at the tangible. The more you are in resonance with yourself, the more this capacity is activated, made functional. You can evaluate. People say, don't judge, don't judge, don't judge. That's a silly idea. You must judge. What they mean is don't condemn or don't criticize. But judge means evaluate. You need to know who you're dealing with. Otherwise, what is going on? You need to know yourself as the essential self. And also to be able to see past your own wounds. That's also an external layer. Right? If you get wounded, that's on a certain surface. And behind that surface is the immortal, essential self, the real self. When you allow things to come in, and the wounds come closer and closer to that essential self, to the point where you can sometimes lose contact with it altogether. So the silence that you do restores contact and pushes those wounds a little more to an external surface, leaving the inner core quite well. And when you're in your silence, you are amplifying more and more this resonance. This also is a process that heals the wounds vibrationally and also makes them come from the subconscious to the conscious, and they come like big storms. So this is why when you do this type of practice, you are causing damage in the atmosphere, because there's an eruption of toxins from the inside. And the system of Ayurvedic medicine operates on this principle, that they will give you different herbs which cause the toxins that are very deep inside the body, that are doing damage, but which the allopathic medicine cannot detect. It causes them to come to the surface. And then sometimes the patient gets upset with the doctor because thinks the doctor made it sick. But no, because it's the system of purging. So yoga is also purging of the soul. So any toxin that is messing up your soul has to be purged. And so a storm, whether it's an emotional storm or a storm of physical illness or a storm of a relational catastrophe or a storm of, some drama happens in your professional environment or any of these sudden things that happen, at core it is some sort of a purging going on. And therefore your perspective on it is, it may feel bad, but it actually is good because it's a cleansing happening. So therefore your feeling about it is, let it be. I don't need to keep this stuff inside. Very often we will respond to those things by suppressing it, which means you put it back inside, and it carries on getting worse, and then you need an even bigger catastrophe which you're unable to suppress for it to come out. So this is why we're giving a lot of attention to the stillness. And in the next meditation that we're going to do now, try to go in deep with this intention to detect your particular note, musical note or vibration. You wouldn't hear anything, but you'll kind of feel it. If you are very sensitive to sound, you might even have some sort of a sense of it, like you're hearing a sound, but it's a feeling. When you get it, you say, yeah, this is my resonance, or this is my note, or this is me. So let's try that. So let yourself sink down deep within. Going through the many layers of your being. To arrive at that pure, unpollutable core. Where you are pure love. Very powerful. At peace with yourself. And actually in bliss, because the best thing of all is that you are you. There is nothing better. And allow yourself to feel the resonance of that. That vibration of perfect harmony that is specific to you. Let yourself disconnect from the physical body and all the stories. Just be pure consciousness alone. In your fullness. As if floating in a sea of light. You can feel the resonance of the Supreme Soul. And you connect. You feel the light and the energy coming through. You take it in deep. The being that is you is getting amplified, brightened. empowered, filled. You feel yourself and that one together. Enriching each other. Stay for a while in that communion. Absorbing, transmitting, stable in the right space. In silence. Gently allow yourself to come into the body with that special resonance spreading throughout your whole body. Perfect harmony between soul and body. Let it spread around you, forming a sphere of light. This is your personal space. You operate in that resonance, that space. Anything that does not resonate with that atmosphere cannot come in. Keep this sphere with yourself as you move around. And you come into the field of action, the material world, with your body, mind, and wisdom, all working in harmony.